Another extemporaneous question, how do you deal with that? How can you find authentic papers
So
from these Silicon Valley icons?
in the archival world, one of the bedrock principles is being able to trace the authenticity, the record of ownership of something, and it's actually for the most part, we deal directly with the people who produce the records. We deal for the most part with the individuals whose papers we're assembling, or maybe with their family, maybe with their kids. There isn't a lot of a problem with those kinds of papers. Papers of Gordon Moore, which we have, we got them from Gordon Moore. We know they're essentially authentic. The issue, I think what you're going for, though, is the question of evaluating the collection. When a historian sits down and looks at those papers and now tries to make judgments about the authenticity of the way that events are being related through that documentation. That's a separate process that
it's
historians
not only
go through.
authenticity, but also relevance.
Yes.
How do you determine whether something is relevant or not?
So, just one quick thing. My job, essentially, in this case, I do write it, and of course Leslie does too, but my job in this context is to lead the horse to water, right? And what the horse does when he gets to the water is up to the horse. And the horse in this case would be the researcher. I would say that for the most part, it's not really my place to influence the researcher very much, other than perhaps, and this happens quite a bit through interviews in early stages of research, where a researcher might be asking, where might I find material relevant to this or that question? But we don't really spend very much time pushing the researcher too much towards one thing or away from another thing. It's something we leave up to the researcher to decide for themselves.
Yeah, and when we identify an individual or a company that we're interested in, honest to God, if the person wanted to give me their favorite cornbread recipe in there, I would happily take it. I feel like our job is to cast a very wide net. Right now I'm wearing my working in the archives hat. To cast a very wide net, you never know what a researcher is going to find useful. When I was writing Noyce's biography, I had side by side his date books and his flight logs and some of his memos, because that enabled me to figure out where was the guy at any given time, his passport, all this. And if someone said, well, do you want Bob Noyce's passport? Why would you want his passport? But that's actually very useful to a historian. So in the archive hat, it's all about cast a wide net, and then your job as a historian is to figure out what is actually useful for your work, and then you're just very thankful, because it's an incredibly frustrating process. It's the proverbial needle in a haystack. You're just going through all this junk and you just can't believe it. And we do have a system. All archives have
So it's a very
systems.
narrow bandpass filter.
Pardon?
Yeah.
Very narrow for those double E's in the audience, if there are any
I
still
just
left.
didn't hear what
He was
he
telling a
said.
double E joke. Never mind.
Sorry. But what was it? But what was it?
That's another of my pet peeves. Silicon Valley is
Just gave it to
now
you.
Web.
Yeah.
Should be renamed Web and Social Media Valley, because we don't make any real things here anymore.